So first of all, sir, I'd like to welcome you to this forum today, and we'll be talking about fostering talent in the space of finance, of course. Now, I am of the view that while you're hiring, there are skills that are required, and you're looking at a holistic purpose as well of hiring that person. In finance space, is there anything specific that you look at while you hire people?
Morning, everyone, and at the outset, really pleased to have a topic. Normally, in every forum, you see about VUCA world, post-COVID, etc. But glad to see there is something to do with people and people agenda, and to talk about fostering inclusivity. Extremely glad to have this topic. I think eventually, I always believe it's the attitude that matters. I divide few things as what is price of entry. Things like integrity, subject matter expertise is all, I put it as price of entry. What moves someone after they cross the price of entry to become a leader is something starts with attitude. What kind of mindset that you have gotten? Are you having a purpose and vision for yourself as to what you want to move towards over a period of time? Is there an ability to make a difference and have ability to have a status quo in what you want to do? And more importantly, can you drive inclusivity and diversity in the organization? That brings in a very different point of view that every leader or people can add in, which can multiply. End of the day, everyone wants to have a larger stakeholder value creation. And the moment this comes in, the views itself can have a significant positive view on the overall journey for the organization.
While you always say that we have an agenda when we come on to hiring people, in finance space, to be specific, is it just the skills that matter? For instance, if I am a CA and I'm qualified for the position that you've opened for, but I do not have the requisite skills when it comes to presentation and other aspects of hiring an individual. So is it just the skills that we're being focusing upon, or you are expecting something else specific in finance space?
No, thank you so much. First of all, I think Kaleeswaran has just hijacked my words. So, yeah, absolutely, I think bingo on that. What typically happens, as you've asked, Vanda, that other than the technical aspect of being into finance, anybody who is a chartered accountant, it's given that he know his stuff, right? That's given. But I think as we grow and we have experience, that becomes a conclusion that your approach, your attitude is far, far more important than what you technically know. Technical knowledge can help you a bit, but more than that, I think it is your holistic view of looking at things, not only from your subject matter expertise point of view, but from more holistically from the people point of view, from a culture point of view, from a business point of view. Because if you don't marry all of them together, your technical knowledge will not be able to kind of take you on a growth path. And that is why now it is becoming a need for not only within finance, but I think across the organization, people to look for people who actually think, fall in full circle. They are not only thinking about only for their domain. And not only from a business point of view, people who are more sophisticated, people who are more culturally aligned to the organization. In their normal thinking also, because being into finance, it is given that you have to deal with multiple other departments. There comes the need for your human skills, for your stakeholder management skill, for your people skill also. So I think the expectations is moving very fast. That people need to kind of think not only from their domain point of view, but from an overall organization and from a full circle point of view.
Well, that means it's not just the skill hiring that, a department is looking at, and it's the holistic being. Now, in a diverse perspective, now earlier the definition of diversity was having women in the picture, right? Finance space hasn't been attracting more of women into this segment. So would you like to give about a specific reason to it? Why is it that, women are not given that welcoming situation wherein they would want to get into a finance domain? Is it the skills that they're not able to?
No, not necessarily that finance is not attracting enough women, because one beacon light, Indra Nui, is a classic example of a person who was part of finance and elevated herself to a global role. Not that that turf is not encouraging for women to come in. Yes, environment certainly plays a role. In today's world, as simple as psychological safety, okay, which is a very crucial one, and also connected to environment. Now that inclusivity has become a big subject of discussion, and diverse teams are the value proposition for winners versus losers. And in the war for talent, an enterprise which creates that environment which is more inclusive, which is more diverse and equity driven, will certainly attract not only women, any element of gender into the organization. So of late, we're seeing, and why is it important? It all goes from the tone at the top.
Right.
If the tone at the top wants to create an environment which is diverse and sustainable, he or she will start scouting for talent in that space. So certainly women are very, very welcome into the finance domain, and compete equally with other genders and prosper much better than.
Well, I believe women here must be much relaxed to hear that, the finance space is not that enclosed only towards men, but then it is more onto an organizational level as to how welcoming they make it for their employees. Is it the same for the leadership level hiring as well? I mean, there you need more of people-centric leaders, who do something for their employees and who give them a pathway to actually explore themselves. So when it comes to leadership hiring in, finance space, what are the objectives or the, talk points you keep in mind while interviewing them?
So, in my view, the most crucial ones is generally finance community is more towards ICI because they less interact with, of late they're opening up with more emotional, like the sales guys, versus looking at numbers. What is very important is adaptability because scenarios are significantly changing. So agility is very, very important. A sense of purpose, like Kaleeswaran said, flexibility. The leader has to provide flexibility in operations, working from home, because be it women at the leadership level, there are a lot of contours which are very, very different from how men operate. So providing flexibility, authenticity in the way you deal with function self or with various other functions, like Arvind mentioned. In these worlds, so if one is very adaptable, because we need to build so many scenarios with the changing circumstances and agility, I would certainly look at adaptability, agility, and a sense of flexibility in the way they operate.
In fact, if I can just add to that point what Abhijeet said. Nowadays, we are saying, like, if you talk about any M&A deal that's going to happen, there are more talks. Every investor have more talk rather than a financial number. They start talking more first on a cultural piece, first more on an inclusivity piece. In fact, there are KPIs now being set for the CEOs to have something like women in management percentage. That's a regular cadence that now the board is asking that how many women are there. One is, of course, the diversity in total, but I think the ball is now shifting much more tighter for the CEOs to have how many women are in management positions. Because you can have diversity overall, but are you serious about bringing women at the management positions? So I think those things are taking a shift. And they are playing a very important role in the overall that reflect a cultural aspect of the top management as well as the overall organization. So this is taking a front seat now. I think that's something which is definitely changing.
A little bit of left school thought, or slightly different to what we look at. I think when we talk about inclusivity and diversity, first and foremost is what is that we are doing in spirit versus form. I think today we talk about global organizations, talking about, say, an LGBTQI is something that I want to make it as inclusivity strategy. Indian organization talking about women. But eventually, if you look at, there could be scenarios where every organization is in a journey and that would suit them better. Are we looking at differentially abled people to come on the table, and are we providing opportunity for them? When we look at a talent, are we able to keep a gender bias out of us and look at what is the role required, and are we able to fill that in? Are we able to keep certain backgrounds of the person outside and then evaluate whether the role will fit in? I think it is a change, and the change is happening in a different pace in a Western country to where India is. But I'm sure this will evolve over a period of time. But underpinning factor is, are we doing this in form or it in spirit? The moment it is form, the multiplier effect is going to be pretty less. And if it is in spirit, we will see significant results and outcomes coming in the near term.
No, very rightly pointed because,
Just to
yeah,
add
sure.
one point, sorry, in spirit. So the way I started doing hiring is on a no-name basis. I do not want to know because the bias will start the moment I see a name. Oh, here is Arvind Sharma. Oh, this man must be from Uttar Pradesh. No, this man must be a... I don't need any name. I just get the CV without any name.
Casteist approach.
Absolutely. So I don't know who that person is, what community, what gender, what ability he has. So that's the first step we did when we started hiring. You know, you asked me. So that was really implemented in spirit, not in form.
Oh, that's very, intriguing to see that, leaders are going on to adopting different ways of hiring talent. Now, there is this another aspect of talent, which is internal hiring. Now, very rightly you said Indra Nuiz was from a finance department and she took over to a leadership position. And so we have example of, the lady, the Chanel head. Earlier she was onto a CHRO role. Do you think that it is also a requisite within an organization to actually upgrade your existing employees onto a level of leadership?
No, absolutely. Very good question. So basically we have a natural tendency sometimes whenever we need to fill a leadership position, we generally go to the outside world. Right. However, we sometimes, if we look at, so there are two things that we do sometimes wrong. That first, that we do not develop or we do not pay right kind of an attention to our current manpower which is already with us, and kind of identifying their talent in terms of giving them an additional responsibility. So I have a strong feeling that if the internal talent has been promoted in a right way, they do a far better job as compared to a person coming from outside, because your internal talent already know how the ways of working it is. That needs a little bit of investment also into them in terms of coaching, training, and kind of giving them a right, a right expectation what is required from a particular role that somebody is looking at. But if you ask me a success ratio between a person coming from internally and coming from externally, I have experienced that success ratio is far higher when somebody comes from internally and it's been grown that way.
I completely agree with him, if you permit me to add, you're right. And it also depends on what's the success framework that the enterprise would like to create, and identify such talent, homegrown, who would want to aspire to become a CEO or the next level. And what necessary investments do they do to support such a growth in the enterprise. And 100% I agree, anyone who is homegrown is far better than someone who comes from outside. For the outsider to even adapt to the changing environment will take considerable amount of time. And the homegrown one is already inbred. He is able to attach, belong to the people far, far better than the outsider. So.
But isn't it something to do with, a person who's already into an organizational framework is not able to bring onto a table something new that an outsider would like to or would have?
That's what I said, that little bit of investment is required. That let's be very, very open here, because at times this is a very realistic problem sometimes which happens. So you need to have a right set of a training as well as an expectation coaching that this is something required, and identify the people. I think that's something, but I think Kaleeswaran want to add something.
I think the point to address there is, are we boxing internal talents? I think there is a lot to do with assumptions and prejudiced view that we take on talent as to how much of risk. Somebody in the earlier panel talked about it is important to take risks on business.
Right.
Are we able to take those risks on internal talent? What kind of risk tolerance are we having, and are we able to allow them to take those roles and fail in it? If not many roles are like make or break. And if we have a simple philosophy to say, boss, 30-40% of my roles are going to be internal talent, and we will invest in those guys and get them to succeed, might be much, much more easier other than coming out of the presumptive basis that we have for the internal talent. 9 out of 10 times it's that. We box them, we assume this is what the person can do. A similar skill set person outside who's an unknown, you have a general bias that goes in. Maybe that's also a journey that we need to cross over.
Oh, fair enough. I completely agree with that. Also, sir, would you like to add something to it?
So I agree, you know, from what you said, boxing talent, and let's say when it comes to success framework, for example, how the way I've built my succession plan is with a fair amount of creating something called finance success framework, which gives me not skill-based, role-based learnings, where are the gaps with the roles that the individual have to do, what are the levels of roles that we have, and completely regular investment. There's something called a heat map that we draw. Where
Right.
does the individual stand? And like Ali said, regular investment into the individual, whomsoever you want to succeed, so that they become eligible to do that role at a later point of time. So it's all about how do you build that succession planning within the enterprise.
No, planning is indeed a very important aspect. I also feel the same. Now, while you are planning for hiring talent into different domains, do you think age also matters? Because Gen Zs are of the view that companies want to hire new talent, fresh talent. So, is it the role of age also that is playing a very pivotal role while you're hiring?
Two parts to it. I think more than age, I would give weightage to agility. So when I talk about agility, I normally see this in 4 boxes. There is results agility, people agility, and mental agility as the first 3. This is by and large given. You need to have a people-friendly person, somebody who has got right IQ, who has the ability to pull in results. But people who are able to carve out change agility and drive change agility are the one who's going to be successful. If age is going to be a barrier to that, that's when you try to see, do you need to have some younger person? But else, I don't want to box it by age unless and otherwise that becomes a constraint. If you're showing the right change agility, it is good. On the contrary, there could be certain areas where you need to have a consumer-oriented feeling and feedback that comes in. What a 40-year-old today used to consume 20 years back is not the current 20-year-old consuming. So are you able to get those insights coming in, and is it necessary for you to have those soundboards in? Today, reverse mentoring is happening like par for the course. It's no more looked at as something unique or unknown. People do go for it. So in that sense, you may have to look at age, but otherwise, I do think change agility is going to be the underlying more than the age.
No, fair enough. While we've discussed various aspects of talent hiring, so would you like to give out 5 key takeaways from this discussion that you would want people or prospective employees to take care of?
I think, as I said in the beginning, typically what happens, when a candidate is selected, he goes through the multiple rounds of discussions earlier, and till the time he reaches to somebody to meet at a last level, who is the decision maker, be it CFO or director of finance or anybody. I think the last round, or generally there should be a more weightage not to talk on the technical side at all. If you ask me, the way when I meet to a guy, I generally do not talk anything about accounting skills or about his competency around what skill set he's having. In simple form, I try to gauge his understanding, his understanding about his thinking about how in a holistic way he thinks. I mean, be it his professional side or be it his personal side. What are the 2 good qualities that he's proud of? Sometimes people hesitate to speak about, and they speak too much about their talent and the professional side of it. I think then you need to get out what are the 2 things that they're not very good at. So I think those aspects should be, and in general what he thinks about working together with people, how he handles the critical situation, how he deals with his people. So those aspects need to be talked and assessed in a very, very constructive manner, and need to be given much more weightage as against, if not much more, at least an equivalent weightage as against his technical qualification, competency, and experience. I think once these aspects are being taken care, it always helps in finding the right set of guys.
So anything you would like to add to it?
I think today I know startups who have got a CXO role named as Chief Culture Officer.
Right.
So eventually you need to create a belongingness to the organization. Yes, money is important, title is important, but as an individual, am I able to associate myself to the purpose for which the organization stands? The way in which an organization works. once that belongingness is created, I think people will go out of the way and deliver their 120%. So it is up to the leaders to see how do you create that inclusivity, how do you create that culture, and how do you celebrate that. That probably will take it to the next level.
No, it is very important for a leader to give that environment to everybody and to himself as well, because in that case, that is the only way that you can go on to hiring a diverse set of talent.
In fact, as you rightly said, as you grow and you become into a leadership roles, I think more and more you start becoming generalist as against the SME. And that is where the time that you need to keep on investing on the people. When I say investing on the people, for example, we were talking about, giving an internal growth to people. One aspect that I would really like to mention there is, while we can expect people to kind of work and take a leadership role internally, but I think we do a little more of a crime from our positions, that we do not give a platform or a strength to them to kind of take up that role. We keep the person busy in kind of doing the whole operational stuff, and still expecting the person to take a leadership position. I think those things need to be taken care from our side, that are we building right set of technology, right set of responsibility change over the period of time, so that the people on the ground have a time and bandwidth to kind of take up the next role.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. And I believe people sitting out here, they must have received the requisite amount of information that you must have heard from these people. So thank you so much for joining us, and for the panelists for giving out time and speaking to us. Thank you so much, sir.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.